Okay, great. Okay, now I will open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for chair for the committee for 2022? And I can't see everyone on the screen, so just feel free to verbally nominate.
I'd like to nominate Shirley Keaveney for chair.
And
I would second that.
That was Councillor Carleton?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other nominations for chair for 2022? No, not seeing any. Can I have a motion to close nominations? Councillor McQueen. Seconder, Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Keaveney, do you accept that nomination?
Thank you very much to the nominators, and yes, I would be honored to accept.
Excellent. Okay, I'll now open it up for nominations for vice chair for 2022.
I would nominate Tom Hutchinson.
And is there a seconder for that motion?
I would second.
Thank you. And motion to, sorry, are there any further nominations for vice chair? Gordon Hicks?
Yes, I was going to nominate Councillor Carleton.
Is there a seconder for that nomination?
Oh, I will. Yeah, it's Ian Body. I'll second that. Just get it on the floor.
Sure. Okay, are there any further nominations for vice chair? Okay, is there a motion to close nominations? Councillor Woodbury. And a seconder? Councillor McQueen. Councillor Hutchison, do you accept the nomination?
I will, but if Councillor Carleton would like to stand, then I would certainly support that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Carleton, would you like your name to stand?
I will not. I'd like to see Councillor Hutchison take it, please. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Hutchinson, you are claimed vice chair. And I'll now pass it over to the chair.
Thank you very much, Tara, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and it's wonderful to see such a large group with us on this sunny morning. So we called this meeting to order, and we have been through the elections. And number 3 on our agenda is the declaration of interest. Is there any declaration of interest around this virtual table this morning? And seeing none and recognizing that anyone can declare at any point in time during the meeting, should you feel the need to, we will carry on. And number 4 on our agenda is a presentation on planning and economic development projects. And I am assuming that I'm going to be turning that over to Randy Scherzer. Thank you very much, Deputy CIO, for joining us and for taking this presentation.
Great. Thanks, Chair Keaveney, and good morning, everyone. It's been quite some time since we had this committee together, and we just wanted to welcome everyone back. The pandemic, no doubt, has impacted some projects and staff resources and has caused us to shift some resources at times to be able to assist with the pandemic. However, there's been a lot of things still on the go, and we wanted to provide an update on some of those key projects and to highlight some of the economic impact or goals for each of those initiatives. But more importantly, we want to leave lots of time for the roundtable discussion, because we want to hear from you on, things like what you're hearing the biggest challenges, the needs and opportunities are, what priorities we should be considering this year as well as beyond, what the role of this group should be moving forward, what you would like to be doing that we're not doing currently, some of which has been, of course, hampered by pandemic restrictions, such as our previous business tours and things like that. But, getting a sense from this committee in terms of what we should be doing over the next few months and into the future as well. And also think about what we're missing that we haven't talked about. So we're really looking forward to everyone's thoughts on those questions, and anything else that you would like to share with the group. We're more than interested in hearing your thoughts. In fact, when Kim talked recently about the agenda and the questions for discussion with the local municipal CAO group, they were very interested in hearing everyone's responses to these questions, as well as the discussion today about some of the projects and initiatives. So we, as Tara noted, have invited the local municipal CAOs to attend today's session as well. And we're fortunate that some of them were able to join us today. So welcome, local municipal CAOs. So we have prepared a bit of a presentation that we're going to go through, and I'm just going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. And let's try this. Okay, can everyone see the slide deck?
Not yet, Randy?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we're good?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So in terms of the agenda for today, again, we're going to highlight some of the planning projects, talk about some of the economic development projects that the economic development team has been working on. Of course, have any comments and feedback with respect to those initiatives, and then really get into those roundtable discussion and dig into some of those questions that we're interested in hearing from folks. And then we're at the meeting adjournment stage. So we'll go right into it, and I'll kick off some of the project updates and initiatives that we've been working on. So the first one is the Climate Change Action Plan. And staff have been working with ICLEI Canada on this plan for the past couple of years. The plan will provide both community as well as corporate strategies for mitigating greenhouse gas emission reductions throughout, again, both the county-wide as well as corporately within the county through our various departments. A draft climate change action plan was released in the fall last year, and consultations have been occurring on the plan throughout the fall and early winter of 2021. We're now refining the plan based on the feedback we have received, and we'll be presenting that final plan to the Climate Change Task Force next month, which will then proceed to council, hopefully for endorsement following that discussion. The implementation of the plan will begin this year, and one of the key projects that we will be working on starting this year is developing a green building standard for new construction in partnership with local municipalities. And part of this program will be exploring opportunities to not only educate and look for training opportunities with respect to green building standards, but also exploring potential incentives to encourage developers to incorporate green building standards as part of their developments. Other benefits that spin off from the Climate Change Action Plan, or we're hoping that will spin off from this plan, will include things like creation of new jobs and economic growth in the building and construction industries, as well as the clean energy sector. Growing our tourism industry from the expansion of electric vehicle use, conservation of our natural heritage, and investment in more sustainable tourism practices. Continuing the strong work of our existing agriculture community and looking for further opportunities for economic growth by implementing more technology, as well as other agriculture practices such as regenerative agriculture. More information can be found on the website, and we included a link in the presentation where you can find some further information about the Climate Change Action Plan. And of course, if anyone has any comments or feedback or questions, just feel free to reach out to staff. We have hired a manager of climate change initiatives. Her name is Linda Swanston, and she has been leading the finalization of this plan and will be leading us and coordinating implementation efforts with county departments, as well as local municipalities, as well as other community partners that we'll be working with on implementing the plan. I'll now turn it over to Scott. He's going to talk about the housekeeping amendment to the county's official plan, as well as the age-friendly community action plan.
Thanks, Randy, and good morning to members of the committee and anyone who may be tuning in this morning. So Randy mentioned earlier that there were some projects that were delayed by the pandemic. One of the things we were able to complete completely under pandemic times was the creation of a new growth management strategy. And for those that might be unfamiliar, the growth management strategy is really a document that looks at population, housing, and employment projections, in this case for the next 25 years. And then we take those numbers and implement those numbers in the county official plan and various other processes that county and municipalities do in terms of looking ahead to our long-term needs for infrastructure and other purposes. In this case, the growth management strategy was completed in 2021. So it forecast out to the year 2046. And one of the things that we learned through this strategy, which matches with our observations on the ground, is that particularly in the past 5 years, Gray has been growing more rapidly than previously forecast. And so the conclusions of this study were such that they projected the county to grow by 24,000 people to the year 2046. That equates to approximately 12,000 housing units. And then similarly, they projected growth of about 8,700 jobs over that same time period. And so this is a projection. So it's if you like, an educated best guess. But we know that this projection will need further updates and tweaks over time. And interestingly enough, I just heard that today, I think we're going to be seeing the first results of the 2021 census. And so once we get the full data set of the 2021 census, that'll be our opportunity to go back and look at some of the numbers in our growth management strategy to see how accurate there were. And so there could need to be further updates in 2023 once we have those full data sets. But this is a long way of saying through official plan amendment number 11, now we're implementing those population, employment, and housing projections. And it gives us more concrete data to plan for. And so that's the major thrust of OPA 11. But some of the other topics that we're covering are implementing early findings of climate change action plan. And perhaps notably to this group, we're also looking at including some of the direction from the county's affordable housing task force to try to make it much easier for people to build secondary residential units, or what the province is now calling additional residential units, as well as including policies for things like co-housing, affordable or tiny housing, and some direction on affordable housing that matches with a project the county is undertaking now to try to look at surplus county and municipal lands to determine whether there's any further affordable housing potential for that. So with respect to official plan amendment number 11, we've just had our public meeting on it last week. We are still in the information gathering stage and seeking input from businesses and municipalities and residents alike. So we are asking for feedback by February 22nd. And then at some point in the future, we'll be bringing a staff report back to committee of the whole and ultimately a bylaw for council on this one. So we'll move to the next slide, please, Randy. So another project the county is currently undertaking is an age-friendly community action plan. And the county was lucky enough to receive a grant. It's the Inclusive Community Grant Program by the province, which helped support the creation of this age-friendly action plan. And so the general tenet of an age-friendly action plan is focusing on sort of either end of the spectrum. What do you need to do to make your community great for very young people? And what do you need to do to make your community great for older adults? And the thought being that if you have a community that's, say, great for 8-year-olds and great for 80-year-olds, you've covered a lot of the demographics in between, because a lot of the supports we need at either end of the spectrum are covered by some of those age demographics in between 8 and 80, so to speak. And so the county is taking guidance on this project from the World Health Organization's 8 age-friendly community domains. And so the end result of this program will be that there'll be a table or an action plan, if you will, which lists action items that the county and member municipalities and different community organizations can undertake with respect to outdoor spaces and public buildings, transportation, housing, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, community and information, community support and health services, and social participation. And so over the past roughly year, there's been a significant amount of public outreach and consultation on this through surveys and various Zoom meetings and other platforms to really get at where we feel the gaps are in our communities and what we need to better support the various different age groups across our communities. And so it's no surprise, we certainly heard a lot about housing, the need for housing of all types, from affordable housing to accessible housing for people of all ages with mobility or other challenges. We heard a lot about transportation, the need for increased transit if possible, the need for more active transportation in terms of walking or cycling or other forms. And then we've heard about a number of other things. We've heard about some great examples of existing groups, neither county nor municipal, out there in our communities that have taken charge and are providing different services and supports across our communities. And then we've also heard about gaps. And so it's these gaps that we're really looking to address. And the county is fully cognizant that this plan can't just be a county plan. It needs to be something we work collaboratively on between the county, our member municipalities, our businesses, and our different service organizations for sure. So we are getting close to finalizing the action items in this plan, and we're hopeful that a report will be presented to Committee of the Whole and Council in Q1 of 2022. And similar to what Randy noted in the Climate Change Action Plan, we have provided a link to the county's website where there's additional information, and certainly you can reach out to staff with any further questions. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Randy.
Great, thanks for that update, Scott. The next update we had is with respect to affordable housing. So Scott noted affordable housing, of course, still continues to come up at many discussions, many tables in terms of the need for increasing the supply of affordable and attainable housing throughout the county. With that, staff from various departments continue to implement the housing action plan that's been created through the county's affordable housing task force. And we included a link to a staff report that provides an overview of the housing action plan. Just to give you some examples of some of the actions that have been either implemented or currently underway within that housing action plan. County Council's commitment to set aside 1% of the levy annually for housing projects is a big step forward. The initial amount committed by Council in 2021 was over $1 million, and the 1% levy annually ongoing commitment equates to just over $600,000 per year that will go into the Affordable Housing Fund to support future builds. Council also passed a new development charges bylaw in December of 2021, and Council decided to continue with the development charge exemptions for any new purpose-built rental housing developments. To date, there's been over 300 residential apartment units that have entered into agreements with the county, which are either being built as we speak or will be built in the near future. There's probably another 300 to 500 rental apartment units that are in the process of finalizing an agreement with the county in the near future, or is also tied up with the Community Improvement Plan program that was implemented in partnership with local municipalities to encourage more affordable and attainable housing throughout the county. As Scott mentioned earlier, staff are also moving forward with the surplus land bank project, which will be analyzing properties that are currently owned by the county or local municipalities within our settlement areas that can be used to support future affordable and attainable housing builds. And the county has hired Liz Buckton on contract, the former manager of planning for Meaford, to focus on this project, and we'll be bringing back further information to the committee in the near future with respect to that project. The county is also, as Scott mentioned, updating planning policies to allow and encourage more second units or those additional residential units. And we're also encouraging local municipalities to permit these as of right through the zoning bylaws. And some of you may have saw in the media yesterday that the province's Affordable Housing Task Force report came out And there's a number of recommendations that province's task force is recommending, which include things like making sure and encouraging or putting in density and as of right permissions for additional residential units as of right on properties that are zoned to allow for residential uses. The county has also recently purchased a building in Owen Sound to create 10 to 12 supportive housing units within that existing building. The building will also include a common space area for residents, as well as a hub program area where residents can receive ongoing support through county staff, as well as other community partners. Of course, one of the main barriers for attracting and retaining workers to our communities is due to the lack of affordable and attainable housing. So by creating more affordable and attainable housing through incentives, as well as ensuring our policies and zoning bylaws are enabling the creation of housing, will help to increase the overall housing supply. Next initiative or update is with respect to municipal boundary collaboration. So in 2020 and 2021, council directed staff to begin researching what we call win-win opportunities or mutually beneficial opportunities and solutions for municipal collaboration when it comes to things like common boundaries adjacent to various settlement areas throughout the county. The first step was to complete the growth management strategy, and as Scott indicated earlier, that was completed in 2021. Staff are now looking into matters of common municipal interest, such as opportunities for shared services or settlement boundary expansions, and looking at other examples of other jurisdictions in order to support our anticipated future growth within our settlement areas, and to make sure that we have enough land within our settlement areas to accommodate that growth. Staff are planning a workshop, which we are hoping to hold in person this spring. Of course, subject to pandemic restrictions still, but this workshop will allow municipalities from other areas outside of Grey to share their experience of boundary expansions and how they work together with their neighboring municipalities to come up with solutions that are mutually beneficial for the municipalities. The workshop will also explore opportunities and best practices when it comes to water and sewer services, and ensuring that the infrastructure is planned and ready to go to support future growth and expansion of our businesses and as well as to support any future residential growth as well. Following the workshop, staff will meet with each of the local municipalities to dig into those growth needs within each of the settlement areas and explore the opportunities to collaborate with neighboring municipalities on those win-win solutions, again, to make sure that our settlement areas will be able to accommodate the projected growth. So now I'll turn it over to Savannah and her team to go over some of the economic development projects.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. Good morning, everybody. We've been very busy in economic development, just as you've seen in planning and all staff at the county level. But these are a snapshot of a few of the really key priorities that we're working on that we know that you are most interested in. So I'm going to hand it right over to Steve, who's going to talk to you about the investment strategy, the draft that we have, and start to get your input on that.
Thank you, Savannah, and good morning, everyone. So a draft investment strategy, sometimes we call this a foreign direct investment strategy, but you'll see from our discussion that we're really focusing on investment. We're not really concerned necessarily if it's foreign or not. And you'll see that this is just another addition of our overall strategy in economic development. We started a number of years ago looking at whether we were investment readiness and improving that. That doesn't go away. We still want to be investment ready. And as we move forward, a new economic development strategy will be developed in the next year or two, I believe. So the investment strategy I just want to talk about is we received some funding from CECI, which is a can export federal government department, to develop a strategy. Now they will sometimes fund material and efforts to attract investment, but they won't do that unless you have a strategy in place. So we're trying to get that in place so we can apply to further funding when we see other opportunities. We have Think Canada working on this project with us. And we're in the process, or have been in the process, of consulting with our industry, municipal CEOs, mayors, and deputy mayors. We did originally want to get this group together. We thought we were going to be able to do that in the fall, looking for the summer, but then the pandemic threw that all into out the window. So we've been having individual meetings with mayors and CEOs and industry. We still have a few more municipalities to talk to. And really the question for our mayors and CEOs, you're on the ground, you're talking to your businesses, you're talking to new people looking to come to your community. We wanted to get your perspective and what you see your strengths and opportunities are. But pulling it all together, we want to have a shared vision for what our investment strategy is for Gray and how we articulate that and how that reaches down into individual municipalities or collection of municipalities. Because investment doesn't really look at municipal boundaries, it looks at a region and it looks at the full strength of the region. So we want to really look at developing that shared vision. And then we want to look at supporting our existing and new businesses. So investment, it's not just bringing a new business to town, that's part of it. But a lot of it, and I think where we want to start is talking to our existing businesses and look at how we can help them secure new investment, whether that's a planned expansion, whether that's new equipment, whether that's just people attraction, helping them attract key people to the region. And in fact, that's sort of where we've been sending a lot of our efforts around labor pool. So this, I think, is going to really be one of our focuses, where you see business expansion of existing businesses, you attract new investment, which also leads to new investment attraction. Next slide. So obviously the benefits of investment strategy is lots of, you're either attracting talent or competition, new technology, and scale effect. There's a wide capacity that can be then spun off into other areas. So the region benefits from every bit of new investment. And it's important to articulate real business opportunities, and you want to qualify them and quantify them. And you can't do that without understanding your existing strengths, and that really is working with your existing businesses. So we want to really also look at what the priorities are at the federal and provincial level. They have certain sectors that they're focusing on, and we can build on their expertise and their network of individuals around the world. And we want to bring those broad economic benefits to our region. And so this is the start. We're still in the consultation stage. We would like to, with your permission and blessing, is bring the consultant to an April meeting and have a full discussion with all of you as we continue to develop the strategy. I think that's next slide, which I think is our next project. Okay, so Sydenham campus, which is where I'm at today. It's been busy this week. We have a number of organizations in doing training. Right now, the campus is actually fulfilling the business plan that was written by Mr. Doran, James Doran. We have an entrepreneurial ecosystem that's developing. We have our Small Business Enterprise Center here and the Catapult, and lots of good things happening. We have a number of training organizations. The YMCA Employment is here. Well, they were here and will be coming back hopefully when the pandemic allows them. That's the healthcare sector training they're doing. The next 4 County Labor Market Board, which is what that acronym means, has been in doing heights training all week. And OYEP is in today. They have 21 carpentry students using a classroom and are also doing heights training. So we're also starting to incubate some interesting businesses. We've also had daycare services start in the East End, and we're hoping that grows. We've had a proposal for a community garden, a fairly large community garden. And so we're looking at that. We're also asking how that can be expanded across Gray, because we've seen a lot of different opportunities there. Our next steps is to focus on the labs and the fabrication equipment. We're talking to an organization called Fab Lab Foundation, which is an organization that creates makerspace fabrication labs. There's about 2,000 of them across the world, and they're all about sharing designs and equipment. We're looking at starting with woodworking, a metal, electronics, robotics, and we're just in the process of consulting with industry and community on what that will look like. don't think there's, I think that's the last slide on the Sydenham campus. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Next is Courtney, which ties into Sydenham as well. So I'll hand it over to her, and also a new face to introduce.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'd like to welcome Lene. She is a new member of our team who is covering for Taylor Corfield while she's on her mat leave. So we're really excited to have her on board for the next year. So some updates on the Business Enterprise Center. We are excited to announce that our provincial contract has been renewed for a 2-year term with the option of a 1-year renewal. So that allows us to do some planning forward, which we're really excited about. So the funding has been maintained at previous levels, so that will cover our core operations as well as our Starter Company Plus program and our Summer Company program. Our program plan, which we developed in coordination with the contract renewal, has been accepted. And some of the initiatives that we have put into the program plan and how we would like to shift a little bit is to pull a little bit back from the large group training that our center has historically always offered and focus a little bit more on one-on-one advisor and specialist support, because we are hearing from our small business community that's really what they're in need of. There's a lot of training offered in the community by some wonderful organizations. So we feel like we're okay to pull out of that space a little bit and offer something a little bit more curated for the small businesses. The other thing that we are going to continue to focus on in the future, as we have in the past, is our partnership development throughout Grey Bruce with other entrepreneurship support providers. So we have a really wonderful group we're calling the Grey Bruce Entrepreneurship Ecosystem. There's about 9 agencies within the group, and we are running a couple events together annually, but also really connecting every couple months to make sure that we're best serving our community and there is minimal duplication happening. So we're really excited about that partnership and the other partnerships we're forming because we think that's really how we best serve our small business community. So those are some of our updates, but otherwise we operations as usual for the next couple of years, which we're really excited about.
Fabulous. Thank you, Courtney, and welcome, Lene, officially. And our last big project to update you on is a local immigration partnership. So I'm going to hand it over to Jacinda, who's going to introduce 2 more new faces for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about overall economic development, tourism and culture.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So just a quick refresh about the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership. It is a 5-year project that started back in April 2020, and it's completely funded by the IRCC, which is the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. It's a collaboration between Grey County and Bruce County Economic Development. And GBLIP is really a community-based partnership that supports planning around the needs of newcomers and fosters a more systemic approach in creating welcoming communities in our region. So we have 2 very experienced and knowledgeable full-time staff, Deepika Gupta, who is our coordinator, and Haley Moody, who is our facilitator, and they've joined us on the call to get updated on everything else that's going on. So when we first introduced this project to you, we had around 30 partner council members from a range of different various stakeholders. Each municipality from Bruce and Grey are represented on the partner council membership, and our membership is now at 55 partners. So we are in the initial phases of implementing a Grey Bruce Train the Trainer project around topics such as justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we have 17 local community members that bring a variety of experience and diversity who have signed up for the Train the Trainer program so that we can start with building our capacity from within. And over the next 18 months, that project will continue. Another component is hosting dialogues with municipal leaders, and we have a really great representation of our member municipalities, and that'll happen, actually it starts tomorrow. And that is really focused on strengthening community capacity and understanding around those 4 topics of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then also GBLIP is partnering with local organizations, employers, and municipal departments to provide training and education to expand our knowledge of EDI and embedding it into our policies, processes, and everyday work and life. This way, we are creating a foundational learning platform that we can kind of build on throughout the life of the Train the Trainer project and throughout the journey over the next few years or so. So we have quite a few initiatives that are happening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us or reach out to Deepika and Haley. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacinda. So all of these projects to say, and as we move into the group discussion, what our team is really focusing on right now is getting back to basics and having those conversations with all of our municipalities. Kim will be booking those with you. We had an invitation right before the holidays, and then, well, things changed a lot with the pandemic. So we paused everything and getting ready to go back so we can have those one-on-one discussions at each member municipality to talk again about what your goals and objectives are and what has changed and where you want to go. Because over the last, I guess it would be 5 years now, we've accomplished a lot of the goals and objectives that we had set out for ourselves as a community and as a group. So we want to know where we're headed, and that's all in preparation for the Economic Development, Tourism and Culture Master Plan that in 2023 we'll be preparing. So our strategy technically expired 2 years ago, but there is never an end of work and projects to do. And we know through the working group that we have, which has all of our member municipalities attending, it has community partners and stakeholders across the board. There's 35 of us that meet regularly, and that is all staff and community level to again keep that ear on the ground and make sure we understand what is happening in terms of trends and challenges and opportunities. And that's where our work plan for the last several years has come from. Each year, we're basically starting it from scratch by what we're being told by that group. So we want to get a little bit more strategic as we're moving forward again, knowing that we've got some major projects to wrap up this year. And most of what you just heard have been started over the last couple of years, and we're kind of in a really good swing of things right now. So we want to continue that while we're listening and learning and having these discussions like we're about to have, so that we can continue to add to our list and understand where it is we're going to go. So when we are getting ready to hire the consultant to put together that master plan, we already have a really good bank of ideas and input that we can draw on. So we really appreciate everyone that's on the call today and all of the, the background and expertise and ideas and challenges that you bring to the table, because without these conversations and this understanding, it's really hard for us to be able to do our job because things do change so quickly. So that is it for our updates. But again, we're all here and happy to answer any questions that you have, and very much excited to hear the discussion that's about to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Savannah, and my thanks as well to Randy, Scott, all of your team, Savannah, Steve, Courtney, and Jacinda, for your presentations this morning. Absolutely an incredible amount of really good work that you are accomplishing in spite of all of the challenges the last couple of years have brought us. So thank you for that. And I will ask now if there are any questions around, and there's everybody back. So I will turn it over to the committee to start asking for any questions or clarifications of all of the information that has just been provided us. Okay, well, while people are thinking about that, I'll begin with a question probably for Randy. I've only had a chance to scan it, but the Ontario Task Force on Housing Affordability report that was unveiled yesterday. And I'm just going to put you on the spot and ask you if you feel that those recommendations are aligning with those of the county, and do you feel that working together in that regard will really help to speed up the approval process for affordable housing builds?
Well, thank you for that question. And I too have only had a chance to do a quick scan of the recommendations. I haven't had a chance to dig through the entire report at this stage. In terms of glancing at the recommendations, I think there definitely is some alignment in terms of, trying to look at encouraging more densities, especially in our fully serviced settlement areas, looking for those opportunities to create more additional residential units, and some other areas, I think, where there's some common alignment. There's definitely some recommendations in there. If the province decides to move forward with some of those recommendations, that will be a change, no doubt, to our current planning processes in terms of what municipalities currently have the ability to approve versus what is going to be potentially just provided as of right. So that will be something I think that we'll need to discuss further with the local municipal planners and We meet with the local municipal planners at least twice a year. I see there probably being a need to have a discussion with that group sooner rather than later with respect to what has been released and what that could look like in terms of our processes and policies. I think some of the recommendations also tie it to provincial funding and looking at recommendations, whereas penalizing municipalities if they don't move forward with certain things, or if they don't meet certain benchmarks when it comes to timeframes and timelines within the planning approvals process. So yeah, so definitely some interesting recommendations for sure. And like I said, I haven't had a full time to digest it at this stage, but no doubt we will, and we'll have some further discussions with council and with local municipalities on what that will look like and how it could function on the ground, so to speak.
I appreciate that, Randy, and look forward to further discussions and information provided from the county in relation to how the power plans and the provincial plans will line up. And I see Kim has her hand up.
Hope you're on mute, Kim.
Sorry about that. Just to add to the good comments that Randy's provided, I think for all of our municipal partners on this call, two things. 1.5 million homes is only possible when there's servicing capacity for 1.5 million homes. And so I'm not aware that the study has been done to ensure that that is in fact the case. And certainly I think that this will put some pressure on the province with regard to their own approval processes, the EA processes, et cetera, to get some of those water and wastewater capacity issues addressed in a timely way. The other thing, we've talked about labor force here many, many times. Those new homes aren't going to build themselves. And so, a corollary to this is how are we going to get the labor that we need to facilitate this construction? So just my couple of thoughts.
Yep, absolutely, and totally agree, Kim. Any other thoughts from the committee in relation to that report, or any questions for any of our staff from the presentations? And Councillor Carleton.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I guess my thought is, how do we ensure that we get our proportion of those homes built in this area? Or do they all end up down around the GTA? Because when you break that down over 10 years, you're talking 150,000 homes a year. So we need to find a way to ensure that our share gets built here so that we can then bring in more people for the labor supply. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more, Sue. And Ashley Chapman, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you all for joining today. And I found this I found it a bit interesting, but certainly out of all of the presentations, and any of you who know me, I'm a very practical man. I want to know timelines. I want to know time frames. I want to know if they're reasonable or not reasonable. And I guess, my father is always fond of the saying, the proof is in the pudding. So I guess I'll see, I get to have some of the proof to the pudding this afternoon when I have a conference call with Scott Taylor and gang about several initiatives that we're doing. But yes, immigration is wholly important to my business. And it's a tough time for Chapman's right now with the labor force, of course, ongoing pandemic restrictions, all of these horrible things that we're all dealing with. But really, whether or not economic development is a priority or not, I will be able to tell you in the next couple of years, that's for sure. So attracting new business, attracting investment, it's all fine and good, but I'm here. And the next 10 years, I'd like to double my business, double the size. And if I had my way, I'd have 1,000 people employed today at Chapman's. I do not have that. I have 800. I have a hard time getting over 800. And considering my plans in the next 10 years, it will really come down to whether or not this group and this area can actually get off the ground in a lot of these projects and clear away some of the hurdles that are going to be faced by businesses like ours. Because to be honest with you, if I want to double the size of my company, it ain't going to be in Gray and Bruce. And we are starting to look at a long-term strategy outside of the area because we do not see that things are occurring and being developed fast enough. Yes, the last 2 years of the pandemic has slowed everything down. It's whether or not in the next couple of years that we can actually catch up as a community. So we'll see how that goes. I'm certainly hopeful that a go forward strategy can be developed by everybody on this call, but again, we'll see what the hurdles are for business. Certainly, the housing issue is desperate is the word I would say for a lot of my employees, a lot of people who would be employees. Long-term rentals that my employees have secured for several years are now being sold, and owners are taking the money and running, and the market, the pool of rentals keeps on getting smaller and smaller, to the point that I might have to build my own apartment building. So we're also looking at that. But then again, I need that apartment building yesterday. So how many obstacles will there be in my way in the next 2 months as I plan to build an apartment building? So just a few comments from me, but I look forward to the next one of these meetings. And I hope to report back to everyone that yes, everyone has been very accommodating, and yes, the plan is going to work. But thank you all for the efforts and everything you're trying to do. I'm just worried that it won't be quick enough. Thank you.
Ashley, I really appreciate your honesty and your comments in relation to what we're discussing here today. And I would say that you've moved us into the roundtable discussion, and that's absolutely perfect. And I feel you kind of holding our feet to the fire, which is a good thing, because it's, yes, it's wonderful to hear about all the plans and all the recommendations and so on. But now it's, yeah, let's get moving. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, everyone, and congratulations to you, Shirley, for becoming chair. A few things. This is where it has to start. We have to start talking the talk to walk the walk, and maybe there's another saying too for Ashley. Maybe that's something that's been out there as well. So a couple things to you, Randy, from the province. Will you be doing a report from an analogy of that that's been sent out to the province and bringing that back to county council?
At this stage, we haven't discussed, in terms of timing of staff reports. Obviously, we anticipate that the province will be moving forward and putting out some draft legislative changes based on to address some of these recommendations. So I anticipate we'll be seeing that hopefully in the near future, especially if the plan is to have those legislative changes passed before the election begins, the provincial election begins. So I suspect that it's probably already being worked on, and it's already been, and we'll see a draft hopefully in the very near future. I think that's when we'll probably analyze that and bring forward a report to council. Because at this stage, we're just dealing with, some of the recommendations from the task force, but until we actually see what is actually being proposed and legislated, it's kind of hard to gauge what will be moving forward right at this stage versus what's going to be coming down the road, maybe post provincial election.
Well, I know from my representation on email, I know there's lots of discussion going on and lots of input, especially from the Roma conference a few weeks back and that Roma paper that was everybody's quite aware of. So I guess a few things, as we know that in the province of Ontario, there's, as you're saying, there's over 700,000 units short for housing, and that's and then as has been said, the last 2 years with the pandemic, we have seen what's happened with real estate, and it's changing with regards to people moving to the cities or moving to more rural settlements or rural urban side of Ontario. So there's a bit of a shift there as well. But I guess going back to the CEO's comments with regards to systems and our infrastructure, I think that's something that all of us need to start doing, is reviewing our water and sewage systems in our municipalities, and looking at optimization and look at expansion, because we saw what happened in Collingwood. I think is a perfect example of all of a sudden, oops, we do not have enough units, and grow and grow and grow, and we know the Collingwood area is growing leaps and bounds. So I think we need to get on our game a little bit more on looking at what we need to do, because I think we are in unprecedented times in the sense of growth that we have seen, and even just in the sense of interest rates being held off at the last few weeks ago and then coming in March. I think there's, they do not want to, sort of a report I got this morning is that the market sort of built in a little bit of an increase, but there's that balance. And I think for future growth here in Ontario, they got to find that, or in Canada as well, is find that balance. And as we know, everybody is tired of this pandemic and wanting to move on with bigger and better things. But so certainly we need to be on our game in that sense. And I think that's something moving forward that we just got to start planning our systems. I think it was interesting, Randy and Scott, last week with your public open house, or what do you want to call it, on OP11, where there was conversations around even further expansion around our urban settings, in the sense that don't have that carved in stone, but the ability to expand outside that. I've heard even around Markdale that there's some lands being bought up with future plans of further expansion. So there's just a lot of things at play, and I think if moving forward from the provincial side, I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities and legislative changes that's going to put it a real fast track on a lot of development. I just heard this morning, just before this meeting, the Barrie Mayor, Jeff Leah, I think his last name there, was talking about, there's some comments in that announcement yesterday about apartment units and 11 stories being sort of mandated or whatever. But, he was saying, well, where's the public input on all that? And so I think there's going to be a bit of a push and pull type thing that's probably going to come out as well. And I think, as you said, Randy, there's a bit of a time frame with a provincial election in the spring. So I think there's a bit of a crunch on what's going to come out in legislation wise as well. So a lot of moving parts. I think we have to look at it as opportunity, and I think is for Grey County. We have to look at this as opportunity to move forward. I think even boundary expansion and a lot of things like that, we have to look at it all. And I know that's part of what you're in your presentation, but I think we have to look at it as a Grey County plan and how we move forward with that. So just some comments. And again, congratulations to Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden McQueen. Randy, was there anything you wanted to add in response to the Deputy Warden?
No, I agree. I think there's until we start seeing some of those legislative changes, some of them will no doubt be opportunities. As Kim noted, though, we need to start planning for that servicing infrastructure, as noted by Councillor McQueen. So that'll be important part of the equation, so to speak, going forward, to make sure that we have the services and infrastructure ready to go to support this, not only the growth that we're anticipating, but also maybe the growth that will be, as Councillor McQueen indicated, fast track possibly with these legislative changes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Woodbury and then Councillor Boddy.
Thank you. I think a couple of things we've got to ask ourselves, especially the municipalities, is that what can we do in the short term to help businesses? Because what's going on right now, like, for everyone knows that in Southgate we're growing very quickly. We've applied now for a mystery zoning order. to help things along. We have a developer that wants to put in some attainable, affordable homes, including rentals like apartment buildings and things like that. But that's all going to take quite a bit of time. What can we do in our own municipalities to cut out some of that red tape, cut out some of that time frame, still get public input, and still get the work done? Because as Ashley said, like, you know, planning an apartment building for a few years down the road, that's good, but the help's needed now. So we've got to look at what we can do now. So we're going to need business input for where the hangups are. We're going to need our staff to tell us where their frustrations and hangups are, and to get things on the road to help more. And to me, that's the big thing, is that cooperation, and take out some of those frustrating parts. So, you know, that's where I think we should be focused, is both long-term, getting all the plans, the infrastructure, all that, but we got to look at what we can do today to help. Oh, and I don't have the answers.
No, and Randy's nodding. Yes, and over to you, Councillor Body.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, and you know, I may have the answers. Back in the 60s, Owen Sound was built out, water and wastewater was built out to service 45,000 people, and we're sitting at 22. And whip-de-doo, we didn't go backwards this time. The census numbers, we've increased by 1.5. When I see town of Blue Mountains is up about 33%, which I'm envious, but that'll be other issues. So we've also got, we did an inventory, or I did an inventory of our industrial lands available. And we've got big chunks of property, a couple of them at 35 acres available, and others, you know, at 5 and 10. So we've got the land, we've got the water and wastewater that is, like, we're built out already. I think we've got something like 500 units that either have or will come onto the market, rental residential units, in the next few months. So we're already, we're not waiting, in a sense, that we're set here with some housing, and we've got 2 or 3 big housing projects that are going through pre-circulation with planning that hasn't been announced. So, you know, we know about the Flato across from the hospital, but we've got a couple of others that are doozies that are itching to go. So we need the labor and the jobs, in a sense, that we're kind of at the opposite corner of some of the other issues around the municipality. And Ashley, love to talk. We can find you space up here. Don't leave Gray and Bruce. We're just an arm's throw away from where you are now, and can complement that before you head down south or somewhere else. So we can talk. But anyway, I think, you know, we're sitting in sort of the opposite issue here in Owen Sound. We need to start selling ourselves to get some of the growth that everyone else is seeing, because we're built out for it. So thanks.
And that's really interesting, Councillor Body, and we appreciate hearing that. And that says to me that, I know the county's already got to focus on transportation, but we need to really continue that, because if you can offer that housing in Owen Sound, and we've got jobs in Beacon and Markdale and so on, we've got to make sure that those people can get where they need to go when they need to get there. So that's a really important piece. And Warden Hicks.
There, I think I'm unmuted now. A few things, Madam Chair, thank you. First, on infrastructure. While we're talking about infrastructure, I hope that we keep talking about broadband, because all the growth in the world, and if we don't have proper broadband moving into the future, we're just not going to get there. So 2 things on broadband. One, I think we need to continue to lobby to support small and medium-sized ISPs, because those are the players that are going to be most beneficial in rural communities. The Bells of the world are not going to be interested in running down that concession to service 6 farms. They're just not. So we've got to continue to push to support medium-sized and small ISPs. And frankly, the standard, the more that I learn about this field, the more that I'm beginning to realize that a standard of 50-10 just doesn't cut it. I mean, if you're right now having, dial-up, I suppose, maybe 50-10 would be wonderful to have. But 50-10, I laugh at that. That's a standard that we've said, if you have 50-10 and you've got it. Well, really, you don't. So I would love to see us thinking more and more about fiber as the standard. Turning next to yesterday's release of the Provincial Affordable Housing Task Force report. One thing that came up, and I too have not read, I read the summary that was provided by AMO, but I have not read the actual report. But one of the things that came out that I find sort of interesting in there is the comment that it appears that municipalities are doing too much consulting, which I find, really interesting, because everybody says, oh, you should be doing more consulting. But I suppose what the report is trying to hit at is the whole, I guess, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And they're trying to address that by saying, let's get on with it. Let's cut the red tape and move on with things. But it will be interesting to see how that plays itself out, because I'm certain that there will be some pushback from people who will say, you have to consult more. On boundary issues and boundary expansion, I just got to say, and here I'm wearing, a deputy mayor's hat, I suppose, coming from Hanover. It shouldn't take 20 plus years to address land issues. It really, it shouldn't. It's a shame. Shame on us. We can do better, and we have to do better. And so we need to address land issues. We need to address boundary issues in a more collaborative and proactive way. And we need to think bigger. I look at Toronto, where I came from, and I see that they amalgamated 6 cities into one. That's big, okay? When we talk about our little boundary issues up here, it's just not big stuff. So we need to get on with it, but it shouldn't take 20 plus years for Hanover to address its land issues. I'll put my warden hat back on again and talk a little bit about business. What I would love to know from businesses is 2 things. How can we help? And probably more important, how can we get out of the way? What things are we doing that really interfere with your progress? Those are the 2 big things I would love to see. And Ashley, I was going to chat with you, send you a little chat, but I see we don't have that option. For some time now, I've been meaning to come and sit down with you, and it looks like perhaps that should happen sooner rather than later. So I'll be reaching out to you, sir.
Thank you, Warden Hicks. And Scott, I'll just ask you before I carry on, is there anything you wanted to add to those comments?
No, I think they're very fair comments, and the comments the warden made about municipalities getting out of the way and consulting too much. It's something that we all need to think about, and it's something we're certainly thinking about as part of the project that Randy mentioned that we're working on affordable housing with Liz Buckton. There's a certain point where we need to look at pre-zoning lands for affordable housing, pre-zoning lands for rental housing, such that, maybe developers only need a site plan or maybe not even that. And I know in a number of our communities, we're seeing more and more engagement in the planning process. And sometimes that engagement is very positive. And sometimes, as the warden noted, that engagement can lead to, more NIMBYism and certainly delay the project and dissuade others from even coming forward with a project. I think a few people have mentioned, including Ashley, that it is at a crisis point. So it's certainly something we need to get on with. With respect to the boundary issues, as Randy mentioned in his presentation, it's certainly something we're looking into further, and we're seeing as an issue in a number of our municipalities. So it's definitely an area where staff need to expend some further time and effort and try to make things happen.
Thank you, Scott. Randy?
Yeah, just to build on Scott's comments, I think, you know, some of the time for consultation is at the time of the official plan stage. So when we're setting out the community vision, the community policies to guide future development, but when we're getting into the technical development details, that should be fairly fast tracked and should be, like Scott said, lands pre-zoned, ready to go, and in some cases maybe we're only dealing with a site plan application that's not appealable, and that's the sentiment from the recommendations from the provincial task force, is that we need to, you know, set the stage for moving these forward more through a technical exercise, and the recommending that, you know, some of those delegations, the current approvals, be delegated to staff in some cases, because they are just technically going through a technical exercise. They're just, staff would just be implementing the policies that are set then by municipal councils through the official plan documents and through the zoning documents. So that's I think something that I know that, you know, we spent a lot of time on the community consultation on recolored gray, because that's an important document. That's setting the stage and the vision for how we want our communities to grow over the next 20, 25 years. But when it gets down into the zoning levels, and even through the provincial legislative changes in the last 2 years in terms of taking appeal rights away for plan of subdivisions and other things like that, they're pointing to that those are more a technical exercise, and you're just implementing the policies in your official plan and zoning documents. This provincial task force is recommending taking that one step further, and in some cases recommending delegating some approvals to staff where it is essentially just implementing policy. So that's something that I think is worth a discussion. We will be highlighting that to staff are working on the delegated planning approvals and planning efficiencies report. We hope to be able to present that either at the next committee of the whole meeting or the committee of the whole meeting right after that. And it will speak to and highlight some of those opportunities that have been recently changed under provincial legislation to delegate further approvals to staff, where it's just strictly a technical exercise, and that will help also speed up the process and take away from what Scott indicated. You know, some of those consultations where we're getting into specific details related to development application that at the end of the day is meeting the policies that have been set out by councils.
That's good news, Randy. We look forward to the report. Thank you. CIO Wingrove.
I wanted to build on the comment that Councillor Woodbury made about what can you do right now. And I really would encourage, and I know that many of the municipalities around the table have made strides in this direction, but to take a look at what it is that you're asking of the people who want to make investments in your community. And lots of times it's the small things that are irritants, and the cumulative impact of those irritants is what I hear drives people bananas. It's things about signage and setbacks and parking and things like that, where they've kind of happened over a long period of time. And maybe we need to take a step back and look at this and say, really, is this the hill that we want to die on? How important is this really? How many hoops do we want? Is this the difference between this development going ahead and not? And what do we want to do? And I think when you, a suggestion that's been made is to look at the applications that are sitting on desks right now and going back to those people and saying to them, what's the holdup? What is preventing you from moving forward right now? And what can we do to try and facilitate you getting your project done? And maybe it's their own financial situation or something else that's changed. But if it's inside of our own house, then we need to take a hard look at that and see if there aren't opportunities for us to maybe make things happen in a timely way.
Exactly right, Kim. Ashley, I saw you smiling and nodding. Did you want to jump in at all on Kim's points?
No, I like the comment about the small irritants. You know, my 15 years in this area, I feel like I've been locked in a tent with a million mosquitoes. So.
Well, we got the fly swatter out. Kim, your hand was still out. Did you wish to add anything more? No, all good. I'm going to jump in with a question for Randy. I wanted to ask your thoughts, Randy. I mean, we know affordable housing is on the minds of everyone, and there are a number of local groups kind of working on this issue. There's the Institute of Southern Georgian Bay. There's a local social finance group which is looking at alternative ways of financing housing. There's a national lab that the social finance group is involved in. There's the wonderful presentation we heard at Roma from Habitat for Humanity, where they basically suggested that if municipalities had the land and offered some incentives, that they could almost jump in and take it from there. So I just wondered how you at the county level are looking to work with those other groups who are also very focused on this problem.
For sure. And I think one key one is that surplus land bank project that Scott mentioned. So that's looking at our lands that are currently owned by either the county or the municipality that's within our settlement areas. So that's nearby existing services and facilities that residents will need to get quick access to, things like grocery stores, pharmacies, transit stops and stations, etc. So that's a key project. So that's the one that Liz, we've hired Liz to help explore and dig into further and work in partnership with local municipalities, get those lands shovel ready, pre-zone those lands. We see offering those up. Similar to the project that the county housing department did in Durham, where we offered up a surplus land to private developers in that case, and we provided some other incentives and funding to support that build. So that's something that we would do as similar. That's a similar structure that we're proposing. I think the Affordable Housing Task Force for the county wanted to explore offering that up to nonprofit housing providers first. And the nice thing about any new builds that even nonprofit housing providers are looking at, it normally includes a combination of affordable and attainable housing. In order to make the financials work, it needs to have both elements in a build. So that's affordable housing as well as market rent housing, essentially, in a build. So the nice thing is that we'd be still tackling both of those housing shortages, that 30,000 and less income bracket plus the 30,000, 100,000 income bracket in terms of that missing middle that is often described. So that's something that I think will be beneficial. We've also, through the Community Improvement Plan program that we've partnered with local municipalities, offering up incentives through that. And we recently heard from a municipality within Gray that's exploring the tax increment equivalent grant. That's a grant that's offered by local municipalities as well as at the county level for taxes to support, again, affordable attainable housing builds. We also have council has exempted nonprofit housing providers for any new builds they're doing. So say if Habitat for Humanity was doing a build within Gray County, there's no county development charges applied to that. And the concept for that is that hopefully those savings can be turned into supporting other builds that Habitat for Humanity and other nonprofit housing providers will be able to provide throughout our communities. We also offer those conditional exemptions for private purpose-built rental housing developments as well. For that, the county requires we enter into agreement with those private developers to ensure that those remain as rentals for 20 plus years, in terms of making sure that those are kept as rentals for at least that period of time. So through those, I think, incentives, I think that's where we have a bit more of control, as well as going back to some of those comments about making sure we have our policy documents up to date. We're pre-zoning those lands, allowing for different forms of housing beyond single attached and semis. We're allowing townhouses, we're allowing apartments, we're allowing more density, but then making sure that we have the servicing and infrastructure, including broadband, as the word indicated, to be able to service those developments is absolutely going to be critical. Because if we're increasing our as of right permissions in our zoning bylaws and other documents to allow for that increased density to occur, we need to make sure our servicing is ready to support that increased density as well.
And lots of communication, Randy, so the development community is aware of the opportunities for incentives and partnerships with the county.
For sure.
Okay. So we're basically into our roundtable discussion. I'm going to read out the first question, and if anybody wants to add anything to that hasn't been said, then we'll do that at that point. First question: what are you hearing in your communities or sectors as the biggest challenge, need, or opportunity? Is there anything anyone would like to add to that particular question? Councillor Boddy.
I think this is probably universal, but labor, I think is the big thing, right? For industry, for agriculture, for absolutely everything. And I think we're probably on the right track when we're talking about, immigration plans and attracting, educated people, et cetera, from elsewhere. About 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, I went to a conference and I was told that there's 28,000 new Canadians moving into Peel region a year. If we could just get 2% of those, it would be great. But yeah, I'd say labor and of course, young families. We don't have to be the retirement community of the world. We'd like to get young families that are going to shop and buy shoes for their kids and provide that labor. Thanks.
Absolutely. And we have seen quite a few young families choosing this area during the pandemic. So we just got to make sure they stay here and that continues. John.
Sure, thank you. I think I just wanted to quickly, because I have to go at 10 o'clock, but to echo what Ashley Chapman said, that for Grey Bruce Health Services, we're having severe challenges, and there are challenges right now in finding affordable housing, be it housing to buy or rental housing for staff that want to come up here and work for us, and they just can't find anything that's affordable. So they're choosing to stay in the GTA. And as well, so that's a barrier. We don't have the luxury of moving our location to where the people are. So our only option is and we're not facing that option now, but it's always a fear that we have to reduce services because we don't have the staff to deliver the services. So I can't stress enough how important it is to have housing available for we have lots of staff to hire and we just can't hire them.
Absolutely a problem in every sector. Councillor Carlton.
Thank you. A couple of comments. In addition to the lack of labor and the housing or affordable housing, a perceived lack of things for people to do in the area that would draw them to the area. Even though we have a lot of natural assets that should draw people to this area, I guess it's to get them to come here as more than a tourist, get them to come and stay. And another comment made to me was taxes too high in certain areas for the services received. So if there's anything we can do countywide, I guess, to help all municipalities get lower tax rates it's sort of an impetus to bring people here. Thank you.
Got to get more of us here, Sue, to, yeah, exactly. It's quite a circle. We just got to get more of us. The next question: what role do you see for the county to address these needs or act on these opportunities? And while you're thinking, I'll throw a thought out there. And then Councillor Boddy, I see NIMBYism as one of the biggest issues. And how do we help people get over their fear of affordable housing? I think there's an opportunity to address the whole terminology because people are fearful that affordable housing is going to bring crime and noise and disruption. And we know it is just the need for people to live in a home that they can afford while they're working at the hospital or at Chapman's or the nursing home or wherever. Councillor Boddy.
And again, I think we're already on it, but certainly the training programs through Georgian College and the Sydenham campus, and getting young people trained to stay here, and continuing to lobby provincial, federal government for funding for those training programs. Bruce Power does suck a lot of talent out of the. That's a bad choice of words, but it continues to draw a large percentage of trained people down to their site, will for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. So, being able to backfill those people and have labor trained. A little earlier, I said we want to attract maybe foreign people too here that are trained, but no, we can train them here if we've got the right programs. So I think we're on the right track, but that's what we need to do, is keep training.
I totally agree, Ian. And I think as well, it's a matter of supporting folks with barriers to employment. Many people who are just, needing that little bit of help to get back into the labor market. I think there's a lot of work that we can do to support those folks. And Deputy Chair Hutchison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just talking to some developers in this area here, their biggest challenge that they have is they'd like to do some affordable, attainable buildings, more so like in the apartments. But, if affordable is kind of like the 800 to 1,000 mark for people to try to sustain some kind of a lifestyle, the problem is the builders, it costs them $1,500 to $2,000 to produce that or make that apartment. So there's a big spread or big gap. And I think what the county did with the Durham project in particular there a couple of years that's sitting, it's up now. I think that was a really good system that worked well. We do have some affordable housing. It's a mix, actually. And I think the county, we could continue to do incentives like that. I think it certainly helped. And, we give them a break on their development charges and whatnot. I think it's certainly going to be the direction. The builders that I'm talking to, that they just need that extra little boost, because they just can't build a unit that would be $800 a month for just a hypothetical number. It's cost them double to put that unit in, so they're never going to get their revenue back. So that's one of the things that I see the county doing. And again, that one, I'm just going to use the one in Durham, was a very successful project. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Chair Hutchison. And that leads me to the thought of a living wage, because people need to earn more money to be able to afford those increasing rents. And what is the county's role in advocating for that living wage, which I believe now is $18.39 an hour? Okay, next question. What priorities should staff be considering in 2022 and beyond? Warden Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to say, I really like the partnership that the county has formed and has had for quite some time with Georgian College. I think we need to continue to strengthen our relationships with, I will say, tertiary education partners, because the more that we can train people here, the more likely they are to consider opportunities in our area, and specifically around the trades. I mean, all of you will know, just try getting a plumber to show up, or God forbid you need a bricklayer, or a plasterer. The trades are perfectly good. You can make a great living and have a wonderful career with the trades, but yet we all seem to, tell our kids that, university is the only way, but boy, we need to do more around tertiary education locally, and training in the trades, and perhaps the county can play a role in promoting more of the launchpad type model. I would love to see a launchpad type of facility in all over the county. Hanover is lucky to have Launchpad, but boy, it's doing great things and it should be expanded. So perhaps that's a role that the county can play.
Yeah, your Launchpad is terrific. Absolutely, no doubt. Anything else in relation to priorities that we would like to see staff working on? Steve?
I just wanted to comment on Warden Hicks' comment. I can't agree with him more, and I think I would point everyone to think about the high school level and what Dave Barrett is doing with OYEP, getting kids more interested in the trades. 21 carpentry students here yesterday. We have a real opportunity. Dave's got the attention of the 2 school boards. We don't have to find housing for those young people as they go to training. We now have Georgian College, which has the apprenticeship programs. We're starting to see a cluster of businesses. Yesterday, I had a tour of Cal and their training facility and the fabrication shops. The opportunities are there. So I just, I agree with you completely. And I also wonder if you saw my presentation I'm making tomorrow, because that's what Savannah and I are starting to think about, the regional need and linking of launch pad type facilities across Gray and Bruce. So I'll just leave that with you.
Love it, Steve. Thank you. Councillor Body.
Yeah, thanks, Shirley. I think we're already on this as well, but climate change is going to be a huge opportunity for us, as well as kind of a scary cost thing. We've the whole Bruce Power thing, it gives us an opportunity, and we can't automatically assume that everything's going to go to Bruce County. We've got the TC Energy storage, whatever it's called, I'm forgetting already. Hydrogen optimized. We've got opportunities that are sitting right in our palm of our hands to try and move forward that will benefit for the next 30, 40 years. And the other thing more on the tourism side is trying to add more EV recharge stations for cars here and there and all over the place. Something that we can probably do in the next year, but planning long-term, I think we've got opportunities. Climate change, the changes because of climate change are coming, and it would be nice to be ahead of the game. And I think we've already got a start, but just to continue to plow into that.
Exactly, Councillor Body. That's the TC Energy Pump Storage Project in Meaford. They're doing the EA's investments at this point in time. And when a company of that magnitude comes into your municipality and basically says, what can we do for you? Affordable housing is the very first thing we ask for. So those discussions are underway. The comments have led me to another thought as well. And I know this is going to sound crazy, because we know every business is desperate for help. And yet I hear people will come to me and say, there's no good jobs. When we did our community safety and well-being plan survey, 66% of the respondents came back and said there is no meaningful work in the municipality of Meaford. And that it really boggled my mind, because why is there a gap there? Why is there something missing where people are not making those connections with employers? So we'll just throw that out there. Next question, what should the role of this advisory group be moving forward? Any thoughts on that one? I would say more of these great discussions, for one thing. Yep, everybody's comfortable with that one. What would you like to be doing that we're not doing? Example, business tours. Put your hands up, anyone who would like to start back with the business tours. I thought they were fabulous when we did do them. And Ashley, is your hand up? Can we come for a tour of Chapman's?
I think he had a meeting at 10, so he had to unfortunately leave the discussion, but he noted that he hopes we see things develop quickly. So between the warden and Kim and myself, and I know we'll probably be connecting with him in the very near future, so we'll get his thoughts on that too. But I'm sure the business tours will be something that he would be in favor of as well.
Thanks, Randy, for jumping in. I didn't realize it is 10:01. Okay. And what are we missing that we haven't talked about? Any thoughts, anyone? We really have covered a lot of ground. Councillor Carlton.
Thank you. One of the comments I have would have to do with drawing more attention to our outdoor recreation opportunities, thinking in terms of the mental and physical health benefits of that for everyone. And while we think there's lots of opportunities for people, are there people not aware of what's there or maybe don't have access because it takes transportation to get to some of these places? So are there some more things we can do that would attract people to this area because of the additional benefits?
Exactly. And I think it's the nightlife, at least in our smaller communities. Young people are looking for that nightlife that we just don't have to offer. Any other thoughts on that question? And I think I'll just add, everyone, please, if something comes to mind after this meeting, please send your thoughts into Randy or Scott so they can be added to this discussion, or to Savannah. Okay, so I think we'll leave the roundtable for now. Number 6 on our agenda is other business. Is there anything anyone would like to bring forward under other business? And seeing none, next meeting dates to be determined, but I think I heard Savannah say that she'd like us to meet again fairly soon.
We're hoping April.
April?
Yeah.
That sounds good. And we will look forward to that. And I would just like to thank everyone for your faith in me to be your chair for 2022 for this committee. And look forward to working with you, Councillor Hutchison, as my deputy chair. Thank you for taking on that role. And if there's nothing else today in relation to this particular discussion, then we will call this meeting adjourned. And is there a mover to adjourn the meeting? Sue, and a seconder, Councillor Woodbury. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine.
Good day, everyone.